Hey, NBA 2K, my NBA fans. Coach 2K back with another My NBA video. And in this video, I want to show you how to use the calendar in your My NBA franchise mode. And if you're a beginner, there's some things that maybe aren't quite so obvious when you first come in here. If you're a veteran, maybe you'll pick up on a few tips on how to play through your franchise mode by seeing how I do it. So I'm going to try and do a deep dive on all the things MyNBA in a series of videos. Anything you want to see in particular, let me know in the comments. And so let's get started here. So on the calendar, you can see, I'm starting on October 24th. That's opening night in the NBA overall. You can see there's a little clipboard there. And that clipboard means that the 76ers here, who I'm controlling, they have a practice today. So the clipboard means there's a practice. If you see that there's a jersey with a little battery recharging on it, that's a rest day and there is no practice scheduled. Now on both of these, you can click and go to the training schedule. I'm not going to go into training and resting and all that now, but this is how you go to the training schedule from the calendar directly. So that's what the clipboard and the jersey with the battery mean on it. Now, you can see here I got a couple days here before the season starts for the 76ers. The first game for the 76ers is against the Milwaukee Bucks. And you can see since it's in red, that's an away game. Blue games are at home. The other thing about this, you'll see there's a little TV in the upper right-hand corner. That means it's a nationally televised game. And so it's an important game. So you can see here against the Bucks, that's a nationally televised game. But you can see here against the Raptors that there is no TV icon. And so if depending on the team you're controlling, that'll determine how many nationally televised games you have. Like, for example, if you play the Pelicans, you may not have any. You play the Lakers, you'll have a bunch more. And those games typically are a little more, I'd say, intense. People look forward to those games, and you should too when you're looking at the schedule. Now, when you go through the calendar, the big days I always think are, opening night. So this is opening night in the league, and you can go and see, what games are being played on opening night. And you can see here that the Lakers play the Nuggets, the Suns play the Warriors, and those two games are the first games slated for the season. Now, there's no games, no stats here yet. If I want, I can simulate through this date, and then you can see if I go into the daily view, then I can look at these games here. And I always like to just kind of sim. If I'm simming the off days where I don't play, I like to go into these games and see, what happens. So here the Nuggets beat the Lakers. The Warriors got pounded by the Suns. And then I like to look and see if there's any outstanding performances. So here you can see Jokic had 30 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists. Pretty good game there. It had, 6 guys in double figures. Here you can see Russell had 23. LeBron had 23. I usually look in here for big performances, like 20-plus rebounds, triple-doubles, double-doubles, see who's hot. From here, you can actually click into the player card by hitting the right stick on the PlayStation. So the other thing about this little card here is you can see the attendance was 100%. That means it was a sellout. Sometimes that was hard to find in past versions of My League, MyNBA. So anyway, you can also, from this square, go into G League games. And it says G League only. Well, the G League hasn't started yet. G League starts a little farther into the season. And so if you don't see any G League games there, then they're not there. Now, the other thing you can do when you go into a daily view is, you can go into the daily view and you can actually choose to play these games if you want. And, you can also choose to force a win. You can simulate the games using one of these 3 sim methods, which I'll go through in another video. So anyway, usually you play through the season. What I like to do is after I like to take it a day at a time. So when this day is done, then what I like to do after that is then I'll go into the social media tab and I'll look and see what happened since the last time that I went in. So you can see here, Devin Booker, he got hurt. So you can see lots of good things about what's going on in the league. The problem with this is it's a little tiny compared to, prior to next gen. But anyway, this can kind of help keep you up to date on what's going on around the league. A lot of people just kind of sim through everything and go really fast, and they don't take a look at what's going on around the league, and I like to do that. The other thing on the calendar is that once I get done with a week, so let me sim through all of these dates here. Now that week is done, and so we're getting ready to start a brand new week here. I like to go into the league news. I like to go into the season awards and see who won Player of the Week honors. So you can see here James Harden and Luka Doncic were Players of the Week, and then I'll usually go in and look at those players and see what kind of stats they had for the week and how they, what they did to deserve that. So we could go into James Harden here, for example, by going into the front office, and let's see what kind of week he had. There's a good view here on recent games and the player cards. So you can see he had a triple-double there, 45 points, 14 rebounds, 13 assists, and so that's really cool, when you see that kind of performance. So I like to go in to see, what's happening, from a season award perspective. Now, also in the season award thing, if we go in here, we can see that you have Player of the Week, you have Player of the Month, you have Rookie of the Month. So after a month goes by, then you can also see the players. Now, I think there's 26 weeks or so of Player of the Week honors. And if I'm playing the actual games, I want to get Player of the Week honors for my players if I can do it. So, I usually stop at the end of each week, and then I'll have a look at that. Now, the first game of the season was the Bucks game. Now, opening night is always a big deal in the NBA for your team. Now, here they opened on the road, and then the first game at home was the Trailblazers. So, that's the home opener, and I always think that's a big deal. I remember, I live in Indiana, so I'd always go to the Pacers home opener. That was always a fun game to go to. So anyway, those are some initial features of the calendar. Now, as you go into the season here, another big date I always think is Christmas Day. Christmas Day, that's kind of in real life when the season really kind of officially begins. That's when everybody kind of starts paying more attention to basketball because football season's kind of coming to a close. But beyond that, if you go down to the calendar here, you'll see that in February there's this little arrow here, and this is the trade deadline. So you want to pay attention to that. And if you're, a lot of times you'll sim through and a little message will pop up that says, hey, it's the trade deadline. Do you want to stop simming? What do you want to do? Anyway, that's what this little arrow means. And, if you do want to make a trade, you want to do it before this day passes, because once the trade deadline passes, and you can't make any trades until after the season. Now, the next big moment is the All-Star Weekend. You have the Rising Stars Challenge, which is the first and second year players. You have the three-point contest, the dunk contest, and then you've got the All-Star game. So that's All-Star Weekend. That's always, I think, a big deal. Also, as you come through the season here, you'll be prompted to do some things for your scout. You'll be prompted to maybe, change your lineup. And the end of the season here is April the 14th. So after the season ends, then the play-in tournament, if you turn that on, would happen. And then after that would be the playoffs. So I like to take my time going through the calendar. Sometimes everybody just kind of rushes through it and you kind of miss, what's going on in your league. But I'm kind of silly like that. I like to see what's happening, especially because I play most of my games when I play. I like to see, what's going on, and you get a real good feel for the season if you are going through everything that way. So those are some tips about the calendar itself. You'll want to make sure that when you're looking at your calendar here, there's other information on it too, like up in the upper right-hand corner. You can see right now I'm covering the Sixers, or I'm controlling the Sixers. And if I change my right stick, I'm controlling the Pistons. So right now I have two teams under my control. Sometimes if your team plays on a particular, like on the trade deadline here, you can see on February the 8th, that's the trade deadline. You can see it in the calendar. But like, for example, on the Pistons, if I go to that date, February 8th, I think it was, they have a game and you can't tell it's a trade deadline. So one way you can find it if you're not sure is by changing the team that you control. And you can see here, if I go back to the 76ers, then on February the 8th, I can see it. Now, the other thing about the calendar is in real life, you have these games being played, and you need to manage your team as you're going through the season. You can see here that I had 2 road games to begin the season, and then I had a back-to-back. So, some of my NBA and my league, if you're still playing that, is, you kind of have to think in terms of how you would be in real life. Back-to-back, you might be a little more tired here. Now, in this case, we won the second half of the back-to-back, so that's a good sign. And it was at home there. Now, here you can see this was a home game. Then we have another one, 4, 5 home games in a row. Then we go on the road, and then we got 3 home games, and then we got 2 road games. So I like to take a look at my back-to-back situation, and then I like to look for long sections where I'm on the road here. You can see here I'm on the road at Christmas. So here I got 4 road games in a row. If you go on down through the season, here's another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 road games. Those are times when, you might want to do some lay off the training, because your guys might get tired if they're traveling all the time. Back-to-backs is another good one. So those are some things that you want to think about when you're using the calendar. I like to plan ahead and see what's ahead. Now, this is an Eastern Conference team, and when you're in the East, you always think in terms, we got the West Coast road trip. So let me find it here. You can see here they've got. Let's see if we can find the Lakers here. Let's see. Anyway, you can go. Here's the Lakers. So you can see we can play the Suns, the Lakers, the Clippers, the Kings. So that's a West Coast road swing, and those are always tough to do. Because if you're in the East, you're in another time zone. You had to travel to get out there, and that's always a big deal. Is the West Coast road swing. Now, in terms of the calendar, you play all the Western Conference teams twice. So if you're in the Eastern Conference, you only see the Western Conference teams twice. If you're playing an 82 game schedule, which that's how I think you ought to set up your MyNBA, even if you aren't playing every game, because you can always sim games that you don't play. Now, in your own conference, I don't remember the exact number, but you play, everybody a certain number of times. But the West Coast teams, if you're in the East, you only play a couple times. So at the end of the season, then, of course, you're going to, then the season's over. Then you'll start the playing game. Then you go into the playoffs. Now, also on this screen, you can see at the bottom, my record is 2-1 here. Team chemistry is 79%. Fan interest is at 90.7%. And right now we're at a loss. So that's all important information because, this team chemistry, that's the number one thing I keep an eye on. I try to do everything I can to increase team chemistry. And of course, fan interest is good. And then obviously you want to have a good record. And then at the bottom, you've got the ticker here. These are things that are going on around the league. So you can kind of see, okay, what games are going on, what's the news. The other thing I do on a daily basis is once, here I'm on this Saturday here, is I typically will go in and look at transactions. So I'll go in to the league news and I'll go into the transaction report. So you can see here that the Trailblazers signed a shooting guard. You can see there's no trades, the signing there, staff firing. You can see I took control of a couple teams, so I look at that. Then I also like to go in and look at the injury report, and you can see here, like here, Paul George is out with a fracture, and he's out 6 to 8 weeks. Kessler's out with a severe left ankle sprain. So I like to keep an eye on these injuries too to see, who's out. Jokic is already out for a couple weeks for some back spasms. So that's important information too. So I usually like to take a look at that. And then as I go through the season, then I like to go in and check out the standings. So I'll go in and say, okay, what are the standings? Okay, so right now I'm controlling the 76ers. The Cavs are leading the East. And as the season goes on, the standings get more important. You can see here, you can see winning streaks, losing streaks. If you want to sort it by that, you can do it by conference, division. So I'll usually go into that. The other thing I'll do kind of during the year as I'm going through the calendar is I'll also take a look at the stats, and I'll look at the league leaders. I particularly like to look at the points per game, and then the rebounds per game. Allen's getting 16 rebounds, assists 12.7, steals 3.5, blocks. Turner leading the league at blocks 4.5 a game early in the season here. So, you know, I guess the temptation is just to blast through the calendar to get to the trade deadline, then get to the playoffs and get to the off season. But there's a lot going on in between those those benchmarks. And you know, as you play your MyNBA, you want to go in there and kind of, you know, make this where you want to spend a lot of time if you really want to find out what's going on in your league. Now, like I mentioned, I play a lot of the games. You know, I have a My League file series you can check out that I'm playing in my NBA 2K19 game. I play every single game in that, so it's important to me to check that out. So when I'm playing games, the other thing that I do is before I play the games, and in addition to that, I'm going into the coaching, I'm going into the coach game plan, I'm going in deciding who's going to be playing. I'm looking to see, okay, well, Harden's tired. Maybe I need to rest him. You know, if somebody got injured, I'll change the rotation. I like to set up my minutes, how I want them to be played, and we can get into that in another video. And then obviously there's guys, I like to go, you know, 10 deep usually to start the season. And then there's guys that I probably won't play. So, you know, those are a few of the things that you want to keep in mind when you're looking at the calendar. And I'll go into another section of MyNBA in my next video. In the meantime, let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you have any calendar tips I didn't mention, or if there's anything you want me to talk about. And if you like this video, be sure and hit the like button and hit that subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And hopefully in these videos, I can really help you better understand this MyNBA one step at a time so that you'll know how the mode works and how to have a lot of fun with it. All right, guys, I am Coach 2K. I'll see you guys on the court in the next video. Thanks for watching.